This faith, thought of as a virtue, I want to do one more thing with you. I want to talk about how we get there, because that sounds really neat and easy, but then there's the real world. Okay, this is kind of what you're getting at a little bit, Mary, where people struggle and where there's difficulty. And so the way I discuss this in my classes is by thinking about getting to here in terms of stages. The stages I lay out are indifference, disbelief, belief, and then what we're trying to get to, the virtue of faith. So let's start with indifference. Let's talk about this in the context of becoming leaders in faith. We have to try to understand to whom we're speaking and what stage they're at in their faith. You have to, for lack of a better term, come at them the right way, to listen before you talk. You have to understand where they're at. Now, the lowest stage, and I think, in my view, in my opinion, the most dangerous stage is indifference. Okay? Indifference means, so I'm going to talk about each stage and how you transition between the stages. But what indifference means is that you don't care. You don't care. Okay, has anyone seen the movie God Is Not Dead? Okay, the Professor Radisson, he's not in this stage. He cares a whole lot about his worldview. He's got other problems. We'll talk about those in a second. But he's not in this stage. He cares a whole lot about being right, and he thinks it matters. Okay, but you can have a conversation with Professor Radisson. It's going to be a difficult conversation if you're a believer. Okay, but you can because he cares. But the person who's in the stage of indifference, you know, I'm thinking about my taxes. I'm thinking about my girlfriend. I'm thinking about this. What does this matter? Does God exist? Did Jesus die for my sins? Is sin even a real thing? Heaven and hell? Everyone disagrees, and there's all these different opinions, and there's so many religions, and I'll work that out later when I'm 90. Okay? I don't care. And you can't have a conversation. You can't start, you have no starting point with someone who just doesn't care. Okay? What's the opposite of love? No. Indifference, apathy, not hate. Hate's actually very similar to love in some ways, the inverse of it, but it suggests really strong emotion. The opposite of love is apathy. It's not caring. Okay? So this person here, he might not be a bad person, but she or he has not realized that you're going to have a worldview whether you want to or not. You're going to end up with a worldview, even if your worldview is you can't answer any of these questions, so I don't care. You're an agnostic. Congratulations, that's the worldview you chose. You might not realize you were choosing it, but that's what you chose. Now, there's a difference between someone who's struggling to figure it out and an agnostic. An agnostic is actually a committed position. You can't answer these questions, okay? Versus someone who's struggling, so that is a distinction. But the person in the stage of indifference just doesn't see why it matters. How does it affect my life? How does it affect everybody's debating about it. There's all this stuff. There's so many religions. I just don't care, and I'm not going to think about it. I don't care to care. I don't care enough to care, all right? Now, when you move, and the way you transition from indifference to disbelief is when you realize that it matters. You're going to have a worldview. Either you are going to choose a worldview or a worldview is going to choose you, but you will end up with one. The question is, how active are you going to be in using your mind and your intellect and your will and the things that God gave you in choosing your worldview? In being able to explain to another human being, this is where my commitment is. No, I can't prove it to you like math, but this is where I stand, and here's why. Are you going to be active in that process, or are you going to let your worldview choose you? You're going to get it from the media or something, so whatever drifts into your brain.